Have you ever had a moment that was supposed to be entirely yours, only to watch it get swallowed up by someone else's shadow? If you have ever been the person who bends backward to keep the peace, only to be blamed when your spine finally snaps, you will understand exactly why I did what I did. I thought a proposal in the Charleston Gardens would finally be mine. No cameras, no audience. Just a vintage ring I once stared at through an antique window, and the man I loved for 6 years. But when I called my mother, Barbara, she did not ask how it happened or what I felt. She just sighed and said, "Did you tell Chloe yet? She is delicate right now." And that is how it began. A wedding that was never mine. A mother who called my boundaries selfish. A sister who messaged my fiancé in the middle of the night. And a vow we had to take barefoot on foreign sand because home would not let us be happy. It was a quiet Sunday afternoon in early October. The trees were beginning to turn gold, dusting the edges of the leaves. A light breeze moved through the hanging moss like a whispered secret. Everything felt still. Sacred. We had taken the long path that curled around the koi pond, then wandered into a secluded grove where the ground was soft with fallen petals. Julian and I had been together for 6 years. The love was already there, worn in like favorite denim. He opened the box slowly, and inside was a vintage band. Simple and elegant. I remember the exact feeling that ran through me when I saw it in his hands. Not shock, not even tears. Just stillness. The kind that happens when everything, for once, aligns. I said yes. We kissed, and that was it. No cheering, no camera clicks. Just the soft rustle of wind through trees. We spent the rest of the day sketching out ideas for the wedding. Mountains or coast, small or smaller. The next morning, I woke up wrapped in Julian's sweater. I stepped out onto the small balcony, phone in hand, and dialed my mother. She picked up on the third ring. Her voice was clipped but pleasant. I waited a moment, letting the joy fill my chest. "I have news. Julian proposed yesterday at the gardens. It was beautiful." I said yes. Silence stretched over the line. Then, her words landed like ice water down my back. "Have you told Chloe yet?" "What?" "Chloe," she repeated slower, like I might have forgotten who my own sister was. "You know she is still fragile. It has been a hard year. You should tell her soon." Carefully. That was all. No congratulations. No joy in her voice. Just concern for Chloe. I hung up politely, calmly. My voice never cracked. But when I set the phone down, my hands felt cold. I tried to rationalize it. Maybe she was caught off guard. Maybe she would call back later with excitement. But I knew better. It was not the first time my joy had come second to my sister's sorrow. When we were kids, Chloe once cried to a teacher that I had hit her just because I got a better grade. I was 12, she was 5. I got detention, she got ice cream. At 16, she wrecked my stepdad's car, let me take the fall until he found the key scratched down the side. Even then, I had covered for her. There was always a reason. She was sensitive. She was going through something. Now, I was 34, and I was done trading my happiness for their comfort. We moved forward with our plans anyway. We booked a small mountain lodge for mid-November. 120 guests, mostly close friends, and a few cousins I still trusted. The color palette was soft blue and ivory. Wintry but warm, just like I wanted. Wild roses, candlelight, handmade pies instead of a cake. There was a current of peace running under it all, like things were finally moving toward something that was mine. Then, 6 weeks later, Chloe announced her engagement. It came through social media. A sunset rooftop photo. Her in a tight backless lace dress, holding hands with a man I had never seen before. They had been dating less than 2 months. The caption read, "When you know, you know. November cannot come fast enough." I stared at the screen, unmoving. I did not say anything to her. Not when she announced the venue 2 weeks later. A modern rustic winery just 12 minutes away from ours. Not when I realized she booked the exact same florist I had been working with for over a month. At first, I told myself it was a coincidence. Then, a friend sent me a picture of Chloe trying on a long, lacy gown with cap sleeves and an open back. My design. The exact one I had chosen privately weeks before Chloe even got engaged. By early November, she had finalized her date. November 12. Ours was November 19. A week apart. 2 weddings. 2 sisters. 1 town. The same florist, the same style, the same theme. I sat in my florist's tiny studio and asked her carefully if she was working both weddings. She paused, eyes apologetic. Chloe reached out a few days ago. I had not realized you two were sisters. I walked to my car in the cold and sat there for a long time. For the first time, I did not know if I wanted to keep planning this wedding. Not because I was not ready, but because I could already feel the narrative slipping away from me. This was supposed to be our story, but once again, I would end up as the footnote in someone else's headline. Chloe got married on the first Saturday of November. It was loud, curated, and performative. The venue was covered in white draping and pale blue lighting, an aesthetic remarkably similar to the one I had originally envisioned. I watched 15 minutes of the live stream from my laptop. She did not invite me. Not formally. I received no card, only the link a friend forwarded. I did not cry. I just felt a strange hollowness, like watching a dress rehearsal of a life I thought was mine. 2 months later, her marriage collapsed. Her husband had been cheating with one of her closest friends. The fallout was loud. Tearful videos, cryptic captions, a divorce filing by mid-March. Chloe posted a video whispering through sniffles about betrayal and soul fractures. Comments poured in calling her brave. I watched all of it in silence. Then I sent one text. If you need anything, I am here. She never replied. In the weeks after the split, I waited for some shift. For my mother to call and say, Elena, your time now. Let us talk dresses. I am proud of you. Instead, she called me on a Thursday in early May. Her voice was light, too light, the way it always was when she was winding into a request. I've been thinking, she said, and I just wonder. Have you considered scaling the wedding back a bit? Just something smaller. Maybe a chapel. Something intimate, close family, simple. It is just. Chloe is still going through so much. Every time she sees something about the wedding, she gets emotional. Mom, I said carefully, I have been planning this for almost a year. Everything is booked. I know, she said quickly, it is just, maybe a smaller celebration would feel more appropriate given what your sister is dealing with. She cried last night when she saw your invitation mock-up. She said it felt like salt in a wound. I let the silence stretch until it pulled tight. I have not even mailed them yet. I know, but still. She knows it is coming. If you loved your sister, really loved her, you would wait until she is stronger. I hung up shortly after, politely like always. It was not just about Chloe's feelings anymore. It was control. Guilt wrapped in concern. Soft pressure disguised as protection. Every decision that moved me forward became a betrayal in her eyes. Thanksgiving arrived. We got the invite from my aunt, and despite every instinct telling me to stay home, Julian looked at me and said gently, "You have every right to be there." So we went. The closer we got to the house, the tighter my chest became. Inside, the house was warm but still chilly in tone. Chloe arrived 20 minutes later, wearing muted tones, looking like a curated advertisement for sadness. She barely glanced in my direction. Most of the afternoon passed in brittle civility. We sat down to dinner. I was placed across from Chloe diagonally, which felt like a statement. She avoided my eyes. Halfway through dinner, Chloe suddenly put down her fork and wiped under her eye. I do not know how to do this, she said quietly. Everyone froze. I tried to keep eating, but the silence was deafening. She sniffled loud now and said louder this time. I mean, how am I supposed to sit here? Like she did not erase me. Like she did not pretend I do not exist. Her voice cracked. I looked up. She was staring straight at me. All I had done was exist in the same room. Barbara moved fast. She wrapped an arm around Chloe's shoulders, murmuring about how strong she was, how unfair it all felt. Then she turned to me. Elena. Really? Is this here now? I blinked, fork still in hand. The air left my lungs. She is still healing, Barbara said. You know that. And you act like she is invisible. Like none of this matters. I took a breath, steady and slow. I am not responsible for how she processes her marriage ending, I said quietly. Chloe made a sound, half gasp, half sob. I stood up. The chair scraped against the floor. I am not going to apologize for having a wedding, I continued, voice calm. And I will not shrink to make room for someone else's recovery arc. Barbara opened her mouth, but I raised a hand. My wedding is not a stage for someone else's healing. I placed my napkin on the table, thanked my aunt for dinner, and walked out. Julian's hand found mine as we left past the stunned faces and untouched pie. We did not speak until we were back in the car. I stared straight ahead, pulse steady. I think I finally understand, I said. It does not matter how gently I step. Some people will always hear it as stomping. Julian squeezed my hand. I stayed up all night, just sitting in stillness at the edge of our bed. By dawn, I opened my laptop. The email to my mother was short. Dear Mom, after repeated boundary violations and emotional manipulation, I have decided to rescind your invitation to our wedding. This decision is final and made to preserve my own well-being. Elena. I copied the same message to Chloe and hit send. No emotion, no drama. It was self-preservation. For the next few weeks, our lives returned to a deliberate rhythm. But the silence was temporary. One afternoon, Julian came home earlier than usual. He set his phone down on the counter between us. You need to see this. I picked it up. It was a social media post from my aunt. Photos of a joyous bridal brunch thrown by Barbara for Chloe. A celebration of new beginnings. There were aunts, cousins, friends. All smiling, holding champagne. I was not invited. I placed the phone down gently. They are rewriting the story, I said softly. Julian's eyes were full of anger. They were not mourning the absence of my wedding. They were replacing it. I looked up at Julian. They do not get to hurt me, then celebrate. What do you want to do? He asked. I wanted to create a space they could not infect. I wanted to walk into my wedding without flinching. Let us move the date, I said. Soon, but not here. Not anywhere they could find their way in. But Chloe was not done. One morning, Julian slid his phone across the table to me. It was a screenshot of a message from Chloe. You are always the only one who really understood me. Underneath it, he had replied with nothing. There is more, he said quietly. The next one, sent the day after. If only we had met before she did. And the final message, sent at 2:30 in the morning. Do not pretend there is nothing between us. You know there is. I felt the muscles in my chest tighten. Not with anger, but with something colder. And you never answered any of these? I asked. He shook his head. Not a word. This was not about being hurt. This was about control. She could not be the bride, so she tried to become the drama. I opened a new email, typed in my mother's address, and attached each screenshot one by one. I typed a single sentence. Still think this is about me lacking empathy? Then I hit send. 3 days later, I was called into my director's office at work. He did not smile. Is there something I should know about your engagement? He asked. I blinked. He explained that a woman contacted him anonymously. She claimed my upcoming wedding was a public relations stunt. That I was using company resources to boost my personal image, that Julian was being paid, that our relationship was fabricated. She said she was my mother. The air left my lungs. That is a lie, I said, my voice firm but low. I would never exploit my personal life for work. And Julian is my person. My director sighed, saying he believed me but warned that perception is fragile. It was not just sabotage anymore. This was war. That night, I sat with Julian at the dining table, staring at the budget spreadsheet. Rows of deposits, vendor notes, seating charts. It all looked sterile. I could not feel anything anymore. My phone buzzed. It was a friend warning me that Chloe was posting again, claiming she and my mother were coming to the wedding whether they were invited or not, to correct what had been twisted. I looked at Julian. What if we did not do this? I asked. This wedding. This spectacle. This performance for people who are not rooting for us. He tilted his head. So, what are we doing instead? I opened my laptop and typed in a single word. Bahamas. He smiled. I like where this is going. We wrote a message. Simple, honest. Change of plans. We're getting married in the Bahamas. No chaos, no seating charts. Just joy. Come if you can. We sent it to 8 people. Our absolute closest circle. Within an hour, every single one of them replied, "I am in. Cannot wait. I will be there." The next morning, we started canceling everything else. The venue, the florist, the musicians. It felt like shedding a costume. We packed our bags and vanished to a tropical island. I did not argue. I just walked away. We stood barefoot on a quiet beach. Soft waves touching our ankles. The sun was dipping low, painting the sky with orange and lavender. 8 friends stood around us. No chairs, no podium. Just sand, laughter, wind, and vows spoken from memory. Julian looked at me, steady and sure. "You reminded me that strength does not mean silence," he vowed. "That love is not control, it is release. I vow to never ask you to shrink. I vow to grow beside you." I looked at him through tears I did not want to hold back. "In you, I found someone who listened. Who stayed. Who never made me feel small for wanting more." We kissed, and the world quieted behind us. No audience waited for an ending. It was the first time I had made a decision without waiting for someone to clap, and I had never felt more free. The morning after our wedding, I woke up with the scent of salt still in my hair. The sky was a soft gray blue. I sat on the deck overlooking the beach and checked my phone. 23 missed calls. Voicemails. Texts. One from Barbara read, "You will regret this. Friends cannot replace blood." I stared at it for a long time. I deleted it. I did not open the voicemails. I knew what they would say. The language of guilt was one I had learned too fluently, and I had no desire to rehearse it anymore. Later that afternoon, a friend called me, breathless. The illusion had finally broken back home. Without me there to be the target, the buffer, the one apologizing to keep the peace, Barbara and Chloe had turned on each other. They had a massive fight. Chloe screamed at Barbara, blaming her for everything. Barbara screamed back, telling Chloe to stop performing her pain. Chloe broke a vase against the wall. Barbara called her a toddler. It was messy. Really messy. Chloe's public statements were backfiring too. The internet had not forgotten her past actions, and the comments were merciless. People called her out for stealing her sister's moments. The tide had turned, and I had not needed to lift a finger. I just watched my backstabbing family implode completely from afar. I set the phone down and stared at the sunlight hitting the water. For years, I had been the patch. The one smoothing over the fractures with endless patience. But I was not holding the pieces anymore. And it turned out, when no one is playing the fixer, the cracks do not vanish. They split wide open. Julian walked out, holding 2 coconuts, squinting into the light. "You okay?" he asked. I looked up at him. "Everything is just noise now," I said. "We already have our piece." That evening, we gathered with our 8 friends for dinner on the beach. The chairs were simple woven rattan. We had no grand arch of orchids, just the ocean behind us and a row of candles flickering gently along the sand. One chair sat empty near the center. I had placed it there on purpose. A small card rested on its cushion with the name Chloe. No one asked about it. No one dared to move it. That silence felt respectful. Not tense, just accepting. My best friend handed me a glass of champagne. "We did it," she smiled. No scandals, no tears. I looked at the empty chair. There was a time I would have begged her to come. Would have softened everything to make her comfortable. Would have sacrificed the joy in the room just to say we were a whole family. But I was done sacrificing for people who treated love like leverage. That chair was not a peace offering. It was a full stop. And oddly, it did not feel hollow. It felt honest. I used to think happiness needed a spotlight. Applause. Recognition. Turns out it just needs space, truth, and a bit of salt in the air. I tucked the name card into my pocket and rested my head on Julian's shoulder. For the first time in years, I was not living in reaction. I was just living. If you have ever been pushed out of your own moment, your own joy, your own life, I hope you find your way back to yourself too. Because you deserve more than to be tolerated. You deserve to be chosen freely, fully. And if you have got a story like that, if you have been erased, overlooked, or underestimated, I hope you will share it with me down in the comments. Because I think we would understand each other.